Okay, well, welcome back. Thank you for joining us. And our next presentation is Aaron Wisniewski. He is one of the co-founders of OVR Technology, a very unique company in the space. Actually, still, I can't think of a competitor yet. We know they're coming, but he's out in the forefront. So, Aaron.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Bob. Thanks, everyone at AWE. So my name is Aaron Wisniewski. I am a co-founder of OVR Technology. We make spatial scent technology for the XR industry. And we believe the future of XR is multisensory. Before I talk about the future, I want to go a little bit back into the past. Over 100 years ago, Marcel Proust, who is one of the most influential authors of the 20th century, dipped a Madeleine cookie into a cup of tea. The smell of that moment instantly transported him on a journey of memory and emotion so powerful, it completely changed the way that he understood the world. Later, he wrote about this experience in his book, Remembrance of Things Past, and his words inspired a completely new concept in the psychological sciences termed Proustian memory. Now, Proustian memory is an intense, vivid, emotional memory triggered by smell. Now, he may have been the first to describe this sensation so elegantly, but all of us experience this every single day, dozens or even hundreds of times. It can come in the form of a smell of a certain kind of food, or perfume of a loved one, or the smell of fresh cut grass, or Play-Doh from our childhood, or even the smell of rain on warm pavement during the summer storm. Whenever we catch a whiff of these aromas, we are instantly transported to another place in time. It is in large part through smell that we understand the world around us. And in turn, smell shapes who we are, how we feel, how we think, and even how we behave. The power of scent lies in its biology. It is the only one of our senses with a direct link to the limbic system. The limbic system is the area of the brain responsible for memory and emotion. It's the oldest part of our brain, and not only is it our memory and emotional center, but it also influences a great deal of our behaviors and our motivations. More than 75% of our daily emotions are triggered by smell, whether you notice it or not. And your sense of smell is fully developed and functioning at just 10 weeks old in the womb. And for months after you're born, it is the only way that you recognize your mother. Our sense of smell also accounts for 90% of our perception of taste and flavor. When we bite into a fresh strawberry or sip a cup of hot coffee, your tongue can only perceive a handful of sensations, but we can detect over 1 trillion different smells. And those smells are what define the flavor of what we eat and drink. In addition to that, our sense of smell informs us when we're in danger, like detecting smoke or when someone left on the gas. It also bonds us to our friends and family. It even influences who we might love. That's right. It's thought that smell is the reason that we are compelled to romantically kiss each other. Our unique individual odor signature contains loads of information about who we are, including our diet, our genetics, our immune system. So it's widely believed that kissing is a way for two people to sample each other's DNA and subconsciously decide whether or not they're a good match for each other, and this all happens through smell. So imagine what's possible when we combine the power of scent with the potential of immersive technology. With more and more of our time spent in XR, it's increasingly important to maximize the benefit of these virtual experiences by engaging our sense of smell in as many of them as we can. If we do, we make them more emotional, we make them more immersive, we make them more realistic, and most importantly, we make them more effective. And that's my mission at OVR. At OVR, we design, build, and manufacture olfactory technology to make virtual experiences better. And we believe that by making our virtual experiences better, we'll be happier and healthier in our real lives. The way that we're doing this is through a platform that we call ION, and I can tell you a little bit about how that works. So, as you explore the virtual world, the ION platform intelligently understands your behavior and translates that into real-time scent outputs, releasing exactly the right scent at precisely the right time. And it can be one scent or a combination of scents. It's also spatial and positional. So as your proximity to objects and events in the virtual world changes, so does the relative intensity and profile of the different odors. Think of it as digital surround sound, but for smell, the first of its kind. The technology itself practically straps onto any VR headset and works with nearly any VR content through a universal software plugin. The scent is generated from a replaceable scent cartridge that contains an array of compounds applicable to a wide variety of virtual experiences. And depending on the experience, they are either released one at a time or in combination to produce thousands of potential variations. All of these scents are released and then immediately cleared. So rather than smells being produced and lingering in the air, which can decrease immersion and the quality of the experience, they instantaneously leave with no latent smell between any of your virtual events or interactions. Now, this is critical because the value of a technology like this not only lies with the inherent value of scent, but also the ability to enhance presence and immersion by accurately recreating exactly how we perceive scent in the real world in VR. So some of you may be wondering, what do we actually do with this technology? Well, to start, we're seeing it applied to many use cases in industries at the intersection of health, knowledge, and human connection. From things like training and simulation for high-risk occupations, police, fire, military, EMT, medical research for everything from pain management to PTSD, and even driving climate action through empathy experiences. But there is one area that we are especially passionate about, and it's something that we are all very familiar with: stress. Stress costs nearly $2.5 trillion a year in lost productivity, and medical researchers estimate that as much as 90% of all disease and illness is a direct result of physical and emotional stress. And so after seeing the potential of VR to reduce stress through the nearly 5,000 published studies, we thought there was a huge opportunity to use the power of olfaction to amplify these benefits of VR and increase access to these therapeutic tools for caregivers and patients. So by combining scent with meditation, mindfulness, breathing exercises, and nature, we were able to create an immersive, evidence-based tool that interrupts the stress pathways and replaces them with positive mood states using smell as the driving force. Now, we already know that meditation works. There are thousands of studies documenting the benefits of meditation, from everything from mood to irritable bowel syndrome. We also know breathing exercises work. They've been proven to calm the central nervous system. And we also know that spending time in nature has measurable physiological benefits. And those benefits don't come just from our eyes and ears. They come from all of our senses, and especially smell. And of course, we also know that olfactory-based intervention works. Now, olfactory-based intervention is kind of the evidence-based cousin of aromatherapy. And this is a practice coined by the National Institute of Health. And the NIH has been studying this on effectively studying it on everything from mood to memory to even smoking cessation. And what's unique about this approach is that VR allows us to combine all of these proven methods at once, and by associating them with smell, we are actually creating our own new Proustian memories in real time, and each of these Proustian memories has measurable therapeutic effect. So how it works, kind of the feeling of the experience, is that in a serene nature environment of your choice, maybe a waterfall or a beach or a mountaintop, you're guided through a sensory-based mindfulness meditation that links your breath with scent and creates calm, positive mood states associated with that particular aroma. The more you access these experiences, the stronger the relationship becomes between the scent and relaxation, and it's more effective both in virtual reality and outside of virtual reality when you experience that scent again. So the impact of this experience was recently measured in a pilot study at the Department of Clinical Psychiatry at the University of Vermont Medical Center. During the study, 50 patients used OVR a few times per week over the course of 3 to 4 weeks. Data was collected right before, right after, and then again 3 hours after the OVR experience. And the results showed that nearly 100% of participants benefited to some degree from the experience, and the average reported reduction in feelings of stress was nearly 70%. And that's just from an 8-minute experience. And what might be even more impressive is that these results persisted even hours after the experience had finished, proving that it's not just a nice escape, but actually you're acquiring skills in VR that can be applied consciously and subconsciously outside of VR effectively. So this study published earlier this year, and we expect more research like this to publish sometime in 2022. But in the meantime, I'm going to go over some other specific examples and use cases of how smell can be used to manage stress when combined with XR and increase access to these tools. The first one is drug and alcohol detox and rehab. There's about 25 million people in the country with drug and alcohol problems, and only about 11% of them get help in a treatment center. And of those 11%, a huge percentage don't finish treatment, which puts them at a much higher risk for relapse and overdose. If you've ever known someone who has gone through detox from substance addiction, it is the most stressful and uncomfortable, painful experience possibly of their entire lives. And the caregivers and clinicians have access to a fairly limited set of tools to provide relief for them. Now, Charlotte Barris at Ascendant Detox and Rehab Center in New York City has been using OVR, and she states that a big issue is when patients want to leave a program against medical advice due to an intense craving. OVR helps disrupt the fight or flight response and provides relief patients need to continue engaging with their therapy, increasing their likelihood for success and sobriety and staying alive. OVR and PTSD are also revealing some interesting results. We've been working with Dr. Skip Rizzo to integrate olfactory cues into the Brave Mind program, which is a multisensory VR experience designed to help veterans and first responders with PTSD. Now, because of sense linked to memory, it can be used to help patients revisit and reprocess difficult memories in a safe, controlled environment. In a relatively recent study conducted at the University of Central Florida, a multisensory VR approach like this was used in a 3-week intensive program. And at the end of that program, nearly 76% of first responders no longer met the diagnostic criteria for PTSD. Every single day, 21 veterans commit suicide. And we hope that olfactory VR might be one of the tools that we can use to finally drive down that number in the very near future. Similarly, Dr. Andrew Clayton, Director of Immersive Learning and Simulation at Air University, is studying how OVR can be used both as a training tool and to help manage the health and wellness of active duty military and first responders. Air University is the Intellectual and Leadership Development Center for the U.S. Air Force, and Dr. Clayton believes that combining olfaction with virtual reality may help these airmen manage stress, the same stress that contributes to overwhelming cases of depression, anxiety, and the high suicide rates. So the universe of XR is a new one. And as it becomes more advanced and we discover new ways to use it, I'd like us all to be thinking about how smell can make our experiences more meaningful. And as immersive technology becomes more widely adopted and more integrated into everyday lives, I actually worry about what happens if we don't incorporate our sense of smell. The danger of losing our sense of smell has been top of mind for millions of people recently who have suffered COVID-related smell loss. Brooke Jarvis of the New York Times wrote an incredible article about this, and in the article, she notes that people who suffered from COVID-related smell loss also struggled with depression symptoms just like those of post-traumatic stress disorder. And along with that, feelings of relentless isolation and disconnection from the world around them. It felt, some people said, as if they were living their lives in black and white, and they were trapped behind a sheet of glass. their sense of normalcy and well-being completely disappeared along with their sense of smell. So I'm dedicated to making sure that we never suffer the same fate in the virtual world. So before I leave today, I want to encourage everyone to embrace our oldest and most primal sense, smell, to unlock the potential of our digital futures. Thank you.
Thank you. It's truly innovative. If we create AR environment, person A in San Francisco and person in New York, they are in the same room talking, and person in San Francisco smells something, and the person in New York, can he smell at the same thing, what other person is smelling?
Yep. So if I understand your question, this is not just a solo experience.
Okay.
A huge part of smell in real life is our ability to experience it in social environments. And so being able to experience smell in VR and share that exact same smell in real time with other people
In
is
other
part of the
location.
technology platform, in anywhere in the world.
Wow, thank you.
Yep.
Hello, thanks for the great talk. I was wondering how many different smells can you produce with the OVR system? Is it a cartridge-based type of system?
Yep. It is a cartridge-based system. So every cartridge contains an array of base odor compounds. Usually it's 9 base odor compounds. Now, unfortunately, it's not physically possible to replicate smell through RGB or CMYK scent. There's no, set amount of molecules that can produce all the smells of the world. However, what we've done is using analytical chemistry and a lot of data, we've been able to isolate compounds in familiar smells that are indicative of that environment. So, for instance, we have a nature cartridge with 9 base odor compounds that individually are recognizable and then combine to create thousands of different odor impressions that would match pretty much any scenario that you would find in nature or the great outdoors. Now, depending on the use case, which is always where we start, is not scent for the sake of scent, is what is the behavioral, emotional, motivational, memory outcome that we want to produce? What sense and what fidelity are important in that use case? For example, on the emotional and memory side, it might be more appropriate to have scents that are familiar but not recognizable. Because scent has such a subjective nature, we want to lead your mind in a direction and let you fill in the blanks, just like your mind does visually and auditory, your mind does with your nose too. Whereas in other applications like hazard identification analysis, where you need to be able to identify specific aromas to keep people safe, maybe we want those to be chemically identical to the way we would experience them in nature. For us, it's a balance between how do we recreate the world that we know now in VR, and how do we reimagine what scent can do in the virtual world as a completely new mechanic.
Cool, thank you.
I came in late, so maybe you already covered this, but what I was curious was, to what degree have you researched or looked at how the visual cues can close the gap between a scent that maybe isn't, 100% on target with what you're going for, but that improved, visual cue or that improved environment bridges that gap?
Amazing question. We're light on statistically relevant data to answer that, but what we do know is that the visual and auditory context is incredibly important. We wouldn't be able to do what we were doing without an immersive technology. So by presenting visual and auditory cues that give you an indication of what you might smell or what you're supposed to smell and how that smell is supposed to behave, we can actually increase the immersion with a fairly rudimentary smell. And sometimes we find that the uncanny valley is where we get the most trouble. So when we try to replicate a smell identically in virtual reality, sometimes it reduces immersion. And the reason for that is the smell of the beach, for instance. That's very different in my experience than yours. And so having leading indicators, molecular indicators that we could kind of characteristically empirically decide through chemistry that every beach has these odor compounds, that in combination with the right auditory and visual cues is extremely immersive and allows you to insert yourself in that situation, drawing on your own memories and emotions. Thank you, everybody.